The vast emptiness of space stretched before the massive starship, its hull scarred and battered from countless unseen battles. Captain Hyun Park stood perfectly still, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the reinforced viewports. The ship, known as the Eternal Resolve, moved with a quiet grace that belied its true nature. Jae Kim, the first officer, monitored the ship's systems with careful precision. His fingers glided across holographic displays, checking and rechecking every possible vulnerability. The ship had been through more than most vessels could survive, yet here it was, still operational, still fighting, still. "Quantum stealth is holding," Jay reported, his voice low and controlled. No external signatures detected. Around them, fragments of destroyed spacecraft drifted like ghosts of a war that had nearly consumed everything. Humanity had been pushed to the brink of extinction, reduced to a handful of survivors with nothing left but their determination and a single, extraordinary ship. The bridge was quiet, almost tomb-like. Each crew member understood the weight of their mission. They were not just soldiers anymore. They were the last hope of an entire species. The Eternal Resolve carried more than just advanced technology. It carried the dreams of a civilization fighting to survive. Captain Park walked slowly across the bridge, his movements deliberate and measured. Years of conflict had etched lines of experience into his face. He had seen entire planetary systems reduced to ash, watched as humanity was systematically hunted across the galaxy. But something remained unbroken, a spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. Yuna Choi, the communications specialist, adjusted her complex array of monitoring equipment. Her screens flickered with encrypted signals, fragments of intercepted, alien communications that told a story of growing confusion and fear. The aliens believed humanity was finished, but they were about to learn a different truth. "Captain," Yuna called out, "I'm detecting unusual network fluctuations in the alien command grid." Park nodded, a slight movement that spoke volumes. Every piece of information was a potential weapon, every signal a possible opportunity. The ship itself was a marvel of human engineering. Developed in secret underground facilities, it represented the absolute pinnacle of technological innovation. Quantum drives that could bend space, adaptive hull armor that could reconstruct itself, weapon systems that defied traditional understanding of physics. The Eternal Resolve was more than a spacecraft. It was a statement. Sung-Min Lee, the chief engineer, monitored the quantum systems with an almost religious dedication. His hands moved swiftly, making micro-adjustments that would be invisible to anyone else. Each calibration was a dance of precision, each system modification a potential game-changer. Outside, the remnants of the galactic battlefield told a grim story. Destroyed ships from multiple alien civilizations floated silently, testament to a conflict that had raged for decades. Humanity had been considered the weakest species, the first to be eliminated. No one expected what was about to happen. The ship's AI, a sophisticated system integrated deeply into every aspect of the vessel, processed millions of calculations per second. It analyzed potential scenarios, calculated risks, and prepared contingency plans that went far beyond traditional military thinking. Captain Park understood something fundamental that most military commanders missed. Warfare was no longer about physical battles, but about information, adaptation, and psychological impact. The Eternal Resolve was not just a weapon, it was a message that said humanity was not finished, a message that said they would fight, a message that said they would survive. The ship continued its silent journey through the debris field, a predator moving without sound, without warning. The aliens watching their long-range scanners would see nothing. They would feel nothing, until it was too late. The ship's interior hummed with a quiet energy that felt almost alive. Yuna Choi's communication arrays began to pulse with a rhythmic sequence of encrypted signals. Each pulse carried more complexity than entire alien communication networks combined. "Something's happening," she whispered, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. The alien monitoring stations across multiple star systems would never understand what was coming. The signals looked like random noise, but they were carefully constructed weapons of pure information. Each transmission was a delicate probe, testing the weakest points of massive communication networks. Sungmin Lee worked furiously in the engineering section. His hands moved with practiced precision, adjusting quantum stabilizers that seemed to defy the basic laws of physics. The ship's technological core was unlike anything any civilization had ever seen. Adaptive circuits that could reconfigure themselves, quantum processors that could predict potential outcomes with frightening accuracy. Quantum alignment at 78%, Sungmin reported, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what was happening. Captain Hyun Park watched the developing scenario with calculated patience. He understood that this was more than a battle. It was a complete reimagining of technological warfare. The aliens had spent decades believing they had eliminated humanity's technological potential. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The ship's AI began its most complex operation. Thousands of microsignals spread out like invisible tendrils, penetrating alien communication grids. Each signal was a tiny piece of a much larger puzzle. They looked harmless, almost meaningless. But they were slowly, methodically dismantling entire communication networks. In the alien command centers, technicians would first notice small irregularities. A delayed transmission, a slightly scrambled signal. Nothing serious enough to raise immediate alarm. But these were the first cracks in a system that was about to completely collapse. Jae Kim monitored the tactical displays. Complex holographic projections showed potential outcomes, each scenario more intricate than the last. The ship wasn't just fighting. It was thinking, adapting, predicting. Network penetration at 42%, Yuna announced, her voice steady but filled with an underlying excitement. The eternal resolve carried more than weapons. It carried humanity's most advanced technological achievements, compressed into a single, incredibly powerful platform. Years of secret research developed in hidden underground facilities had created something unprecedented. Every alien civilization had believed humanity was finished. They had systematically destroyed human colonies, eliminated human fleets, and considered the species essentially extinct. But they had missed one crucial detail: humanity's ability to adapt, to create, to survive against impossible odds. The ship's quantum drives began to pulse with a strange, almost musical rhythm. To an outside observer, it would look like a random energy fluctuation. But each pulse was a carefully calculated signal, designed to exploit the tiniest vulnerabilities in alien technological systems. Sungmin watched his screens with a mixture of scientific curiosity and professional pride. This wasn't just technology, this was art. Each circuit, each quantum processor was a brushstroke in a massive technological painting. Captain Park understood the psychological impact of what they were doing. This wasn't just about destroying networks. This was about sending a message that said humanity was not just alive, but more advanced than anyone could have imagined. The alien monitoring stations would soon realize something was wrong. Their communication networks would start to fail in ways they couldn't understand. Entire strategic systems would begin to collapse with no clear explanation. Full quantum integration in 3, 2, 1, Yuna called out. The ship seemed to vibrate with an energy that went beyond simple mechanical operation. It was alive, thinking, calculating millions of possibilities every second. The technological awakening had begun, and the war that everyone thought was over was about to take an unexpected turn. The alien command centers began to tremble with an unexplained fear. Something was happening that defied their understanding of warfare, of survival, of technology. Yoonji, Kwan managed the tactical simulations with cold precision. Her fingers moved across holographic displays, tracking the psychological impact of each carefully constructed transmission. The eternal resolve wasn't just attacking physical systems, it was dismantling entire civilizations from within. Each signal sent was a calculated psychological weapon. The aliens would receive fragments of information that made no sense. Partial communications that suggested humanity was everywhere and nowhere. Strategic reports that contradicted themselves. Command structures began to question everything they knew. Captain Hyun Park watched the developing scenario with a calm that bordered on mathematical certainty. He understood that true warfare happened in the mind long before it happened in physical space. The ship's transmissions were designed to create maximum confusion. One moment, alien sensors would detect a massive human fleet in one sector. The next moment, those same sensors would show nothing. Communications would hint at hidden colonies, secret technologies, impossible capabilities. J. Kim monitored the psychological breakdown of alien strategic networks. Each transmission was a precise injection of doubt. The aliens had believed humanity was extinct. Now they were confronting the possibility that humanity was not just alive, but more dangerous than ever before. Their communication networks are fragmenting, Yuna reported, her voice steady but filled with an underlying intensity. The psychological warfare was subtle. It wasn't about direct confrontation. It was about creating uncertainty, making the enemy question everything they believed, making them see threats in every shadow, hear warnings in every silence. Alien commanders began to argue among themselves. Their perfectly structured hierarchical system started to crumble from within. Trust dissolved. Cooperation became impossible. Each transmission from the human ship was like a precise surgical cut, separating muscle from bone. Sungmin Lee worked on advanced signal generators that could create impossible scenarios. Transmissions that suggested multiple human fleets, advanced technologies that seemed to break the laws of physics. The aliens would spend more energy trying to understand these impossible signals than defending themselves. The ship moved silently through the debris field, a ghost that could be everywhere and nowhere. Long-range sensors would catch glimpses of something only to have it disappear moments later. Was it real? Was it a trick? The uncertainty was the weapon. Captain Park understood something fundamental about intelligent species. Fear was more destructive than any physical weapon. And right now, he was injecting pure, calculated fear into the alien command structures. Yunji's tactical displays showed the progressive breakdown. Communication networks collapsing, strategic partnerships dissolving, entire civilizations beginning to turn against themselves driven by an unseen, unknown threat. The human ship was writing a new manual of warfare, not through destruction, but through suggestion, not through direct attack, but through creating an environment of total psychological uncertainty. Each transmission was carefully constructed. Hints of technologies that seemed impossible. Suggestions of human capabilities that defied understanding. The aliens would spend more energy trying to understand these signals than defending themselves. Network confusion at 87%, Yuna announced. The psychological warfare was working perfectly. The aliens were no longer a unified force. They were becoming a collection of paranoid, frightened individuals, each suspecting the other of weakness, of potential betrayal. Captain Park allowed himself a small, calculated smile. This was victory in its purest form. Not through overwhelming force, but through the most sophisticated weapon humanity had ever developed. Its ability to think, to adapt, to understand the complex nature of fear and uncertainty. The ship continued its silent journey, each moment bringing the alien civilizations closer to complete psychological collapse. The war that everyone thought was over was just beginning to reveal its true nature, and humanity was just getting started. The single quantum pulse changed everything. Captain Hyun Park watched the holographic displays with absolute concentration. One precise signal, that was all it would take. The eternal resolve wasn't just a spacecraft anymore. It had become a symbol of humanity's unbreakable spirit. Alien communication networks began to collapse like fragile glass structures. Strategic formations that had taken decades to build disintegrated within milliseconds. The pulse carried more than energy. It carried a message of total technological superiority. J. Kim monitored the system breakdown. Total network penetration confirmed, he reported, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what was happening. The AIM pulse moved through alien systems like a living intelligence. It didn't just disable technology. It completely rewrote operational protocols. Entire fleet command structures suddenly found themselves locked out of their own systems. Weapons became useless. Communication channels turned into silent, dead Pathways, Yunji Quan tracked the progressive collapse. Each second revealed another layer of alien technological vulnerability. They had spent years believing they had eliminated humanity. Now they were discovering how catastrophically wrong they had been. The quantum pulse carried sophisticated adaptive algorithms. It wasn't a simple attack. It was a complete technological reimagining of warfare. Systems that had taken generations to develop were being dismantled in moments. Alien commanders watched in growing horror as their most advanced technologies became nothing more than expensive metal sculptures. Entire weapon platforms powered down. Communication networks went silent. Strategic defense systems became completely inoperable. Sungmin Lee adjusted the final quantum calibrations. Maximum system integration achieved, he announced. The Eternal Resolve moved silently through the debris field. No massive weapons fired. No traditional military maneuvers happened. Just a single, precise technological intervention that changed everything. Yuna Choi intercepted the alien communications. Panic, confusion, complete technological surrender. They were experiencing something beyond defeat. They were experiencing total systemic collapse. Captain Park understood the psychological impact of what was happening. This wasn't just about winning a war. This was about demonstrating a fundamental truth about humanity's potential. Adaptation, innovation, survival. The quantum pulse carried the DNA of human technological innovation. Years of secret research. Decades of technological development hidden in underground facilities. The most advanced thinking humanity could produce, compressed into a single devastating moment. Alien strategic centers became silent tombs of technology. Massive ships that had once represented ultimate power now floated like dead metal sculptures. No weapons fired. No traditional battle happened. Just a complete technological surrender. Each alien civilization began to realize a terrifying truth. Humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was evolving beyond their comprehension. The turning moment wasn't about destruction. It was about demonstration. A precise, calculated show of technological superiority that went beyond traditional understanding of warfare. J. Kim's displays showed the progressive collapse. Communication networks, weapon systems, strategic formations, everything was falling apart with mathematical precision. Complete system integration confirmed, Yuna reported. The Eternal Resolve had become more than a spacecraft. It was a living demonstration of human potential, a symbol that said humanity would not just survive, humanity would triumph. Captain Park watched the holographic displays. No celebration, no emotional response. Just a calm understanding that everything had changed. The aliens had spent years hunting humanity, destroying human colonies, eliminating human technological potential. They believed the war was over. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The single quantum pulse had transformed everything, and humanity's true potential was just beginning to reveal itself. The war was already over. They just didn't know it yet. The quantum transmission ended with a silence more powerful than any weapon. Alien diplomatic channels, once vibrant and aggressive, now trembled with an unexpected emotion. Respect. Captain, Hyun Park understood that true victory was never about destruction. It was about transformation. The Eternal Resolve's final transmission carried more complexity than entire alien diplomatic archives. It wasn't a demand for surrender. It was an invitation to understand humanity's true potential. J. Kim monitored the initial response. Alien leadership was collapsing from within. Their perfect hierarchical systems couldn't process the technological demonstration they had just witnessed. Humanity had shown them something beyond warfare, a fundamental ability to adapt and survive. Diplomatic. Channels are opening, Yuna Choi reported, her fingers dancing across complex communication interfaces. The ship carried more than advanced technology. It carried the collective hope of a species that had been pushed to the absolute edge of extinction. Every circuit, every quantum processor represented years of hidden research. of survival against impossible odds. Alien representatives began requesting communication protocols. They weren't asking as conquerors anymore. They were asking as students, as beings suddenly understanding they were not the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Sungmin Lee adjusted the final communication parameters. The transmission wasn't just a message. It was a careful demonstration of technological philosophy. Humanity was showing that technology could be a bridge, not just a weapon. Captain Park watched the developing scenario with calculated patience. He understood that this moment was about more than winning a war. It was about redefining galactic relationships. The Eternal Resolve's quantum systems began broadcasting a series of complex mathematical sequences. To an untrained observer, they would look like random signals. But for advanced civilizations, they represented a complete blueprint of human technological understanding. Yunji Quan tracked the diplomatic interactions. The aliens were no longer discussing elimination. They were discussing cooperation. They were discussing learning. One by one, alien civilizations began to recognize a fundamental truth. Humanity was not just a surviving species. Humanity was an evolving intelligence that could reshape entire technological landscapes. The ship's AI processed millions of potential scenarios each second. Each scenario showed a future where humanity was not just accepted, but respected, not through force, but through demonstrated potential. Initial diplomatic acknowledgement received, Jay reported. The transmission carried subtle messages. Humanity was not seeking revenge. Humanity was offering a new path of understanding. Each signal suggested cooperation, mutual growth, technological exchange. Alien leaders who had spent decades planning humanity's destruction now found themselves requesting technological exchanges. They wanted to understand. They wanted to learn. Captain. Park allowed himself a slight smile. This was victory in its purest form. Not through destruction, but through demonstration of potential. The Eternal Resolve had become more than a spacecraft. It was a living testimony to human resilience. A symbol that said survival was not just about fighting. It was about understanding, adapting, growing. Yuna's communication panel showed something unprecedented. Alien civilizations were beginning to rebuild their understanding of technological potential. And humanity was at the center of that transformation. The quantum transmission carried a simple, powerful message. We are here. We will survive. We will grow. Sungmin's final calibrations showed something remarkable. The transmission was not just a communication. It was an invitation to a future where species could learn from each other, grow together, understand each other's potential. The war was over, but humanity's real journey was just beginning. Captain Hyun Park looked out into the vast emptiness of space. One ship, one transmission. An entire galactic understanding transformed.